Amara stood outside the golden doors of the Grand Pearl Hotel, her hands shaking. She could hear music floating through the air, soft and beautiful, like something from a dream. But this wasn't her dream. This was her daughter's wedding day, and Amara looked nothing like the other guests walking past her. Her nurse uniform was hidden under an old brown coat that had seen too many winters. The coat had a patch on the elbow that she'd sewn herself with thread that didn't quite match. Her shoes were clean, but they were old and the heel on the left one wobbled when she walked. She'd scrubbed her hands until they hurt, but they still looked red and rough from all the cleaning she did at the hospital. In her hands, she held a small gift wrapped in newspaper. Inside was a blanket she'd made by hand, stitch by stitch, during her lunch breaks and late nights. It had taken her 6 months to finish. The newspaper wrapping crinkled as she squeezed it tight. "I can do this," she whispered to herself. "Mariana is my daughter. I belong here." But when she pushed open those golden doors and stepped inside, everything changed. The ballroom was the most beautiful place Amara had ever seen. Huge glass lights hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. White flowers covered every table, their smell sweet and strong. The floor was so shiny that Amara could see her reflection in it, and she quickly looked away. She didn't want to see herself here, not like this. Everyone around her wore fancy clothes. The women had long, sparkly dresses that swooshed when they walked. The men wore perfect black suits with shiny shoes. They laughed and talked, holding glasses that caught the light. And then they saw her. One woman nudged her husband and pointed. A man in a gray suit wrinkled his nose. 2 younger women covered their mouths and whispered each other, their eyes wide. Amara felt her face grow hot. She tried to stand up straighter, tried to look like she belonged, but her coat felt heavier with each step. She smelled like bleach and antiseptic from the hospital. She'd come straight from her shift because she couldn't afford to miss work, not even today. "Excuse me," someone said sharply. Amara turned to see a tall woman in a purple dress. Her name was Ada, and Amara remembered her from Mariana's college photos. She was Mariana's friend, but right now she looked angry. "Amara," Ada said, her voice quiet but hard. "Why did you come looking like this?" The words hit Amara like cold water. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Mariana isn't expecting anyone yet," Ada continued, glancing around nervously. "The ceremony hasn't started. Maybe you should wait somewhere else. Somewhere quieter." I wanted to see my daughter," Amara said softly. Her voice sounded small in the big room. Ada's face softened just a little, but worry still filled her eyes. "I know, but—" She looked at Amara's coat, her worn shoes, the newspaper-wrapped gift. "Just wait here. I'll get someone." Amara stood frozen as Ada hurried away. Around her, people kept staring. A little boy pointed at her until his mother pulled his hand down. An older man shook his head and turned away. Amara wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. But then she thought about Mariana, about the little girl who used to hug her tight after school, who used to say, "Mama, you're the best mama in the whole world." A woman in a black suit appeared. She had a clipboard and a kind smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hello," she said professionally. "I'm the wedding coordinator. Would you mind coming with me?" Amara followed her through a side door, down a hallway with thick carpet that made their footsteps silent. They stopped at a white door with gold letters that said Bridal Suite. The coordinator knocked softly. "Miss Mariana, there's someone here to see you." The door opened, and there she was. Mariana looked like a princess from the storybooks Amara used to read to her when she was little. Her wedding dress was white as snow, with tiny diamonds sewn into it that sparkled when she moved. Her hair was perfect, pulled up with small white flowers tucked into it. Her makeup made her look like someone from a magazine. She was beautiful. She was perfect. And when she saw Amara standing there in her old coat and wobbling shoes, something changed in her face. "Mama," Mariana said, and her voice sounded strange, tight. "My beautiful girl," Amara whispered, tears filling her eyes. "You look so beautiful." Mariana glanced back into the room, where other women were fixing their hair and laughing. Then she stepped out into the hallway and closed the door behind her. "Mama, I'm so glad you came," she said, but she didn't move closer. She didn't hug Amara like she used to. "But the ceremony is about to start, and I need to finish getting ready." "I know, sweetheart. I just wanted to give you this." Amara held out the newspaper-wrapped gift, her hands trembling. Mariana looked at it, then at her mother's face, then back at the gift. "Thank you, Mama. That's very sweet." She took it carefully, like it might break. "Could you maybe wait until after the ceremony? And there's a bathroom down the hall where you can freshen up a little." The words were polite, but they cut deep. "Freshen up. Make yourself look better. Hide." "Of course," Amara said, her voice cracking. "I understand." "I love you, Mama," Mariana said quickly, and then she was gone back behind the white door. Amara stood alone in the hallway. The coordinator had disappeared. The music from the ballroom seemed far away now, like it was in another world. She found the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red. Her coat looked even worse under these bright lights. She splashed water on her face and tried to smooth down her hair. But nothing could change the truth. She didn't fit here. In this world of diamonds and perfect dresses, she was just a tired nurse with rough hands and an old coat. Still, she thought about Mariana's face, about the years of hard work, the double shifts, the nights she'd gone hungry so Mariana could have new school supplies. She thought about every sacrifice, every missed meal, every time she'd chosen Mariana's future over her own comfort. "I belong here," she whispered to her reflection. "I made this possible." And with that thought holding her together, she walked back toward the ballroom to watch her daughter get married. Amara slipped back into the ballroom and found a seat in the very last row, tucked in the corner where the shadows were darker. She made herself as small as possible, pulling her coat tight around her body even though the room was warm. The ballroom had filled up while she was gone. Hundreds of people sat in white chairs tied with silk ribbons. Everyone looked perfect, like they'd stepped out of a fashion show. The women's jewelry caught the light. The men's watches gleamed. Children sat quietly in their fancy outfits, not a wrinkle or stain anywhere. Amara looked down at her lap and tried to become invisible. A woman sat down next to her, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Amara made in 3 months. The woman glanced at Amara, then shifted her chair slightly away, just an inch or two. But Amara noticed. She always noticed. The lights dimmed, and the string quartet at the front began to play a soft, sweet melody that made Amara's heart ache. This was really happening. Her little girl was getting married. A man in a black suit walked to the front and stood under an archway covered in white roses. He had kind eyes and silver hair. This must be the person who would perform the ceremony. Then came the bridesmaids, walking slowly down the aisle in pale pink dresses that looked like spring flowers. They smiled at the guests as they passed. Ada was among them. Her purple dress now changed for the matching pink one. She didn't look toward the back, where Amara sat. The music changed. Everyone stood up, and there was Mariana. She stood at the entrance with Dylan's father on her arm. Dylan's father, not hers. Because Mariana's father had left when she was just 3 years old, and Amara had raised her alone. Mariana walked down the aisle like she was floating. The lights made her dress shimmer. Her smile was bright and beautiful. But Amara could see something else there too, a tightness around her eyes, a stiffness in her shoulders. Amara knew her daughter better than anyone in the world. She could tell when Mariana was truly happy and when she was pretending. Right now, something was bothering her. Dylan waited at the front, his face full of love and joy. He was a good man. Amara knew that. She'd met him once, briefly, when Mariana had brought him to the small apartment for dinner. He'd been kind to Amara, asking about her work at the hospital, thanking her for the simple meal she'd made. Mariana reached the front, and Dylan took her hand. They turned to face each other, and the ceremony began. The man with silver hair spoke about love and partnership, about building a life together through good times and hard times. His words were beautiful, but Amara barely heard them. She was watching Mariana's face, seeing the way her daughter's eyes kept darting the crowd, searching for something. "Dylan," the man said, please share your vows. Dylan cleared his throat. His voice was strong and sure. Mariana, from the moment I met you, I knew you were special. You're smart, kind, and the strongest person I know. You work so hard for everything you have, and I'm honored to stand beside you as you continue to achieve your dreams. I promise to support you, to love you, and to always remind you how amazing you are. People in the crowd made soft ah sounds. Some women dabbed at their eyes with tissues. Mariana, the man, said, "Your vows, please." Mariana took a deep breath. Her hand shook a little as she held Dylan's. Dylan, you came into my life when I needed someone most. You showed me that I deserved to be loved, that I didn't have to do everything alone anymore. You've given me a family, a future, and a love I never thought I'd find. Her voice cracked on the last word. She paused, looking down at their joined hands. The room was completely silent. Everyone waited. Mariana looked up again, but this time she didn't look at Dylan. She looked out at the crowd. Her eyes swept across the rows of people in their expensive clothes and perfect hair. And then her eyes found Amara in the back corner. For a long moment, mother and daughter just stared at each other. Amara felt her heart hammering in her chest. What was happening? Why was Mariana looking at her like that, with tears streaming down her face? Mariana turned to the man with silver hair. "May I say something else?" she asked softly. He nodded, looking confused but encouraging. Mariana let go of Dylan's hand and walked over to where a microphone stood at the side of the archway. She picked it up, and her voice filled the entire ballroom. "Before we continue," she said, her voice shaking, "I need to say something important. Something I should have said a long time ago." The crowd shifted in their seats. Whispers rippled through the room. This wasn't part of the plan. Wedding ceremonies didn't stop in the middle for speeches. Dylan looked worried. The bridesmaids glanced at each other nervously. Ada's eyes were wide. "Everyone here sees this beautiful wedding," Mariana continued, her voice growing stronger. "You see the flowers, the fancy hotel, the expensive dress. You see Dylan's wonderful family, who has been so generous and welcoming to me." She paused, wiping tears from her cheeks with her free hand. "But there's someone here who made all of this possible. Someone who gave up everything, so I could have anything. Someone who worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, so I could go to school. Someone who went without meals, so I could eat. Someone who wore the same old coat for 10 years, so I could have new clothes." Amara's breath caught in her throat. No, Mariana, don't do this, she thought. Don't embarrass yourself in front of all these people. But Mariana kept talking, her eyes now locked on Amara's face. "Someone who came here today straight from her hospital shift because she couldn't afford to miss work, not even for her daughter's wedding. Someone who's been judged and stared at and made to feel small because she doesn't look like she belongs here." The whispers grew louder. People turned in their seats, trying to figure out who Mariana was talking about. "My mother," Mariana said, her voice breaking completely now. "My beautiful, strong, amazing mother, Amara, who is sitting in the back corner trying to hide because I made her feel like she should." Every head in the room turned to look at Amara. The woman in the cream-colored dress beside her gasped softly, her face going red. Amara wanted to sink into the floor. She wanted to disappear. Her face burned with shame and something else, something that felt like hope but hurt too much to name. "Mama," Mariana said into microphone, looking directly at her now, tears streaming freely down her face. "I am so sorry. I'm sorry I asked you to hide. I'm sorry I cared more about what these people thought than about honoring the person who sacrificed everything for me." Mariana's voice echoed through the silent ballroom. Not a single person moved. Even the babies were quiet, as if they knew something important was happening. "You don't belong in the back," Mariana continued. "You belong right here at the front, because without you, there would be no wedding. Without you, there would be no me. Everything I am, everything I've achieved, every good thing in my life exists because you love me enough to give up your own dreams." Amara couldn't hold back anymore. Tears poured down her face. Her whole body shook with sobs she'd been holding in for hours, for years, maybe forever. Will you please? Mariana said, her voice soft now, gentle, like when she was a little girl asking for one more bedtime story. Will you please come up here and stand with me? Where you've always belonged. The entire ballroom held its breath. Amara looked at all those faces staring at her. She looked at her old coat, her worn shoes, her rough hands clutching the armrest of her chair. And then she looked at her daughter, standing at the front in her beautiful white dress, holding out her hand across the distance between them. Slowly, Amara stood up. Amara's legs felt like they were made of water. She took one step forward, then another. Her wobbling heel clicked against the shiny floor, and the sound seemed to echo through the silent ballroom. Every single person watched her walk down that aisle. But something had changed. The stares felt different now. Before, people looked at her with judgment, with wrinkled noses and turned-away faces. Now their eyes were soft. Some people had tears running down their cheeks. Others had their hands over their hearts. Amara passed a woman in a cream-colored dress, who now looked ashamed, her head bowed. She passed Ada, whose face was twisted with regret. She passed Dylan's parents, who were smiling at her through their tears. With each step, Amara felt something lifting off her shoulders. The weight of shame, the burden of feeling less than everyone else, the pain of hiding who she was. It all began to fall away like leaves from a tree. Her old brown coat didn't seem so terrible anymore. Her worn shoes didn't make her want to hide, because Mariana had told the truth, and the truth had set something free. When she reached the front, Mariana ran to her. She didn't care about her perfect dress or her careful makeup. She threw her arms around her mother and held her tight, just like she used to when she was a little girl coming home from school. I'm sorry, Mama. Mariana sobbed into Amara's shoulder. I'm so sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. You're everything. You're everything. Amara wrapped her arms around her daughter, her baby, her whole world. Sure, my love, she whispered. I'm here. I'm here. They stood there, holding each other, and Amara could feel Mariana shaking with sobs. All the pressure her daughter had been carrying, all the pretending to be someone else, all the trying to fit into a world that felt too fancy and too far away, all came pouring out. Finally, Mariana pulled back and looked at her mother's face. She reached up and wiped the tears from Amara's cheeks with her thumbs, just like Amara used to do for her when she was small and had scraped her knee or been teased at school. I want everyone here to know your story, Mariana said, turning back to the crowd with her arm around her mother's waist. I want them to know what real love looks like. She took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone again. My mother worked as a nurse in the children's ward at Memorial Hospital. She worked the night shift because it paid a little more. She would come home at 7 in the morning, make me breakfast, get me ready for school, and then sleep for just a few hours before waking up to pick me up again. Amara felt her face grow warm, but Mariana kept going. When I wanted to take piano lessons, she worked extra shifts for 6 months to pay for them. When I needed a dress for my high school prom, she made one by hand because we couldn't afford to buy one. When I got accepted to college, she took on a third job cleaning offices on weekends, so I wouldn't have to worry about money. More people in the crowd were crying now. A man in the third row wiped his eyes with his handkerchief. A young woman held her husband's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. She never complained. Mariana continued, her voice filled with wonder and pain. Not once. She just loved me. She just gave and gave and gave, and I took it all without really understanding what it cost her. Mariana turned to look at Amara again. Mama, you gave up your dreams so I could have mine. You worked yourself to exhaustion so I could rest. You wore old clothes so I could have new ones. And today, I almost let you hide in the shadows because I was worried about what people would think. She shook her head, fresh tears falling. But you know what? I don't care what anyone thinks anymore, because the only person in this room whose opinion matters to me is standing right here beside me. Amara couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. Dylan stepped forward then, joining them under the archway. He looked at Amara with respect and gratitude in his eyes. Mrs. Amara, he said gently, I've known for a long time what an amazing woman you are. Mariana tells me stories about you all the time. about how you taught her to be strong, to work hard, to never give up. You raised a woman I love, and for that, I'm forever grateful. He took Amara's hand in his. I promise you I will take care of her. But I also promise to remind her every single day of the incredible example you set, of what real love and sacrifice look like. Amara finally found her voice. It came out as a whisper, but in the quiet room, everyone could hear. Thank you, she said to Dylan. Then she turned to Mariana. And sweetheart, you never have to apologize to me. I would do it all again, 1,000 times over, just to see you smile. That's when it started. One person began to clap, then another, then another. Soon, the entire ballroom was filled with the sound of applause. Not the polite, quiet clapping from before, but real, thundering applause that came from deep in people's hearts. People stood up from their seats, one by one, until everyone in the room was on their feet, clapping and crying and celebrating something bigger than a wedding. They were celebrating love. Real love, the kind that shows up in an old coat, the kind that works 3 jobs, the kind that sacrifices everything and asks for nothing in return. The woman in the cream-colored dress was sobbing, clapping harder than anyone. Ada was crying so hard her makeup ran down her face. Dylan's mother had her hand over her mouth, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. The man with silver hair, who was supposed to be performing the ceremony, was wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Mariana pulled both Amara and Dylan into a hug, the 3 of them standing together under the archway of white roses. The photographer rushed forward, snapping pictures of this moment that no one had planned but everyone would remember forever. After the applause finally died down and people took their seats again, the ceremony continued. But it was different now. It felt real, authentic, like the fancy decorations and expensive flowers didn't matter as much as the love filling the room. When the man with silver hair pronounced Mariana and Dylan husband and wife, and they kissed, Amara stood right there beside them, her hand on her daughter's shoulder. The reception that followed was the happiest night of Amara's life. People kept coming up to her, introducing themselves, thanking her for her courage, telling her their own stories of sacrifice and hard work. The woman in the cream-colored dress apologized with tears in her eyes. Ada hugged her and said, "You're the most beautiful person here." Dylan's parents insisted that Amara sit at the head table with the bride and groom. They treated her like royalty, like she was the most important guest at the wedding, because she was. When a photographer took the official family portraits, Amara stood right in the center, between Marianne and Dylan, her old brown coat still on, because she was proud of it now. That coat represented years of hard work. It represented love. It represented a mother who had given everything. And in those photos, she glowed, not because of fancy clothes or perfect makeup, but because she was finally being seen for who she really was. A woman of strength, a woman of sacrifice, a woman of incredible, unshakable love. As the night came to an end and guests began to leave, Mariana walked her mother to the door. They stood there together, holding hands like they used to when Mariana was little. "Thank you for coming, Mama," Mariana said softly. "Thank you for always showing up, even when it was hard." "I'll always show up for you," Amara replied, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Always." They hugged one last time, long and tight, and when they pulled apart, both of them were smiling through their tears. Amara walked out into the cool night air, her newspaper-wrapped gift now unwrapped and placed on Mariana's gift table with all the other presents. She looked back at the golden doors of the Grand Pearl Hotel one last time. She had arrived at this wedding feeling small, feeling less than, feeling like she didn't belong. She was leaving as a hero, as the most honored guest, as exactly who she was supposed to be, because real love doesn't need fancy wrapping. Real success isn't measured by what you wear or what you own. It's measured by the lives you touch, the sacrifices you make, and the courage to stand tall in your truth, even when the world tells you to hide. Mariana had learned that lesson today, and so had everyone else in that ballroom. Sometimes the most beautiful thing at a wedding isn't the dress or the flowers or the expensive decorations. Sometimes it's a mother in an old brown coat, being honored by the daughter she raised with love, sacrifice, and hands that never stop working. That's what true love looks like. And it's the most beautiful thing in the world. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales about love, sacrifice, and the courage to be your authentic self. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. What did you think of Amara and Mariana's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below.